Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the Serious Strategy Gamer, and it is Friday, so we are returning to our Fridays for Future Let's Play of Fate of the World, a game where we're trying to combat climate change, while simultaneously a lot of things are happening. And as you can see by these little symbols on the world map, not that many good things have happened. So last time we did lay out our strategy. So for the first phase of climate change addressal, within 2030, we are playing until 2200, we will be focusing on reducing our carbon emissions throughout the world, in particular in the regions that are the worst emitters, and that is North America, China, Europe, Latin America, and some of the other countries. So while simultaneously we are trying to block some of the worst effects, so we are trying to adapt to climate change to a certain degree, and unfortunately that hasn't worked out quite as well as we would have hoped in the last episode. So end of last episode, we were warned in many of the regions that there was a drought imminent, and as we'll see over here, that hasn't been exactly the case. So if we do have a look over here, you can see that there have been flash floods in, I think, Southeast Asia, or China, yeah, and some of the other regions, so it's not exactly as we would have expected. Nevertheless, let's jump into North America, have a look at the news over here in detail. So North America is a bit happy about the anti-drought efforts that we did make, so that's nice to see. So yeah, that's very nice. So they do like us a little bit more. On the other hand, they are still objecting against the Tobin tax, so that is certainly something that they hate. There has also been some flooding, and as you can see, there are a lot of negative effects for that. So firstly, people dislike that very much, so yeah, our regional support goes down, and that's of course very bad. But also, all sector capital index goes down, so that means the economy is shrinking, the housing is affected, a little bit of the population dies, and if we say a little bit, this is still, I think, about at least 10,000 people or so, and there is some migration risk, so that's not good. And indeed, it was a problem that we didn't see before. We were expanding the drought efforts and not the flooding efforts, so yeah, that's a little bit unfortunate. On the other hand, we do see that there's a major refitting program underway that is dramatically cutting energy waste across North America. Heating, ventilation and air conditioning used to eat energy here, but retrofitting buildings with better insulation, triple glazed windows has slashed consumption by a lot. So that's very good news, because also we have had the smart grids breakthrough, so both of these should, if we do have a look at the emissions over here, reduce our annual emissions specifically from energy usage at least a little bit. So it's baby steps, but it's a first good step, and that comes from the card that we have been playing over here, where we are trying to increase the business and household carbon regulation. So that is very nice. We're also continuing to improve the transport network, so that's very good. Tobin tax, I think we should we should keep that. We haven't been warned about any particular droughts or flooding that could be happening next turn, so I don't think we have to spend money on that. So that would either be the storm defenses or even improved drought defenses. So that's not necessarily required right now, so I think we might keep it as is for this moment, although I would like to play a card that is beneficial to the region, because we are losing support here. We're losing support very quickly, so what we can do actually is take a tick mark over here and only display the things that are popular right now. So it's not that many, to be honest, so I'm mindful whether we don't want to build up some storm and flood defenses. It's relatively cheap, and we do want to adapt to climate change. We could also, on the other hand, also develop some of these technologies. Technologies do help us a lot. Smart grids is a particularly important one, but also going either in. So all of these are very important, and I think we should be starting to look at some of them. Specifically in North America, I think what we could do is go for smart grids, so that we go for quantum computing, super smart grids, all of that a little bit more quickly, so that wouldn't be too bad. So you know what, for now, let's start the Infotech research program. So that will allow us to research these things a little bit more quickly. I don't know whether it has been displayed. No, it has not been updated yet, but that should be fine. So also I think Infotech pretty nicely belongs to North America because of Silicon Valley, of course. We'll have to be mindful whether we do want to continue playing the Tobin tax. That has a cost of -100, so that does give us 100 benefit, so we'll have to see about that. Let's jump over to Europe. Structurally very similar to North America, maybe with a little bit more industry, a little bit smaller commercial sector. Also here people do like our efforts in energy drought protection. We have been fracking over here and that contaminates the water production, but in Europe water isn't actually that much of a problem, so we're gonna ignore it for now because we have way too many problems as is. Some retrofitting, so that's nice to see. On the other hand, also here there was a storm, cuts off parts of Europe, kills whole families. That's obviously not good, so yeah, that's a little bit unfortunate. Other than that though, I'm happy with these things. People do like us here a little bit more, so that is cool. We could acquire smart grids. That would be somewhat expensive. I don't think that makes sense because we will be getting it in 2.5 years anyway, and turns are 5 years, so there's actually no point acquiring that now. We will be getting that automatically next turn, so that's good to see. Anything else that we do want to do over here in particular? We could build the eco-awareness campaign. Protect land and soil and forests wouldn't be too bad. Coal-free industry, industrial carbon regulations would also be kind of good. I think still a lot of the emissions over here are coming from the industrial sector. Yes indeed, that's actually 20% straight away from the industry. Why? Are you using coal in the industry? Are you? Wait a minute, coal use? Yeah, well, a little bit. Mostly though from just the energy demand, so yeah, I think actually the industrial carbon regulations might be a good card for Europe. Let's go to China, one of the biggest emitters. They have gotten some new technology that's not too important. People do like us over here also because of the droughts, but flash flooding even worse over here than it was in North America, so that's no good. We also see a lot of fuel toxicity, so that is because we are burning coal and fossil fuels in cities, so that's no good. And we are also seeing that a couple of our first failures over here, so we have been playing the cap and trade carbon emissions, so we're going to talk about that in a second, but yeah, because not enough countries have been yeah, so we're seeing more storms in China as well, so both current flooding and predictions of future flooding, so I think what we do have to do over here is build up defenses against that as well. So we'll start out by building the basic defenses. We might get the improved defenses later on, but there are only these two level of defenses, and yeah, ultimately it's going to be much worse than that. Let's drop the carbon trade emissions scheme for now. So what that does is theoretically it slowly reduces emissions, but it would do that by setting an emission target and creating a carbon trading scheme to help. So in between regions there could be some trade, and simply we haven't signed up enough regions, so we need to be very consistent about that. And honestly, we aren't right now, so that's not something that we should be doing. I do think it might make sense to build up coal-free industry, so if we do have a look at the emissions, a lot of that comes from the industry. Again, a lot of that is because we are burning coal in our industry directly, and that is a problem. But if we do look at the electricity network, there's still a lot of coal in the mix, so it might not make sense to switch the industry over to coal, to energy usage, if we are instead using burning fuel there, so that doesn't make that much sense. Could build some renewables, but I don't think that's that important. Well, there were some water problems, weren't there? Did we see water problems here? No, we did not, so that's actually okay. Could build up improved drought defenses. I'm not sure. We could also just try to decline the coal power. I think that probably does make the most sense. It will increase reliance on other energy sources, but that's fine. We are also trying to commit to more nuclear power, so that's good. And I think we are making some progress over here. So if we do have a look at this, yeah, we see that the coal usage stays somewhat constant. It actually increases a little bit, but the extra energy that we are using from turn to turn mostly comes from uranium right now. So we're going to increase gas and coal usage a little bit. So yeah. Not that much we can do. Higher education, I think, is still very relevant. Speaking of, let's switch over to India, one of the most difficult countries to deal with. As you can see, there are a lot of problems. So, yeah, toxicity as well, water stress, which increases migration risk, which is not good. We don't want to get into a global crisis on immigrants or emigrants. That would be rather bad. This fails for now, so that's no good. And we are enforcing our one-child policy. Let's have a look at the population structure here. So yeah, it's somewhat constant, but that's good because, well, otherwise we'd be having increasing problems over here. So yeah, I think that's fine for now. We should be thinking about what other things we can do for... So I think it might make sense to start a vegetarian revolution in India. Well, firstly, that's a little bit fitting, but secondly, there is a big water problem down here, so we could do that, and that would decrease the water usage. So if you remember well, water stress, that's a problem, and water stress is being caused by... Can we go to the... No, that's not what I want to look at. Come on, where's water? Agriculture, water emissions... All use. There was water somewhere. I thought it was under environment, but it isn't. It feels weird. Agriculture, really? Yes. So yeah, there's the water stress. That is because of our water usage, and our water usage does mainly, predominantly, come from agricultural usage. So yeah, I do think this makes a lot of sense. We could also think about switching to organic farming, which would further reduce water usage and some other effects. It would reduce GDP and it wouldn't necessarily be a popular choice, but I think it might be a good one. Could also build enhanced water infrastructure. But yeah, I think this would make for a very nice combo over here. So switch to organic farming, go vegetarian. That should reduce a lot of the pressure while we are at the same time trying to increase the Human Development Index over here. So yeah, I think that's a good combination for India. Let's jump over to, shall we go Latin America? Latin America has quite a bit of emissions, and they were also flooded. That's no good. Deforestation is slowing down. There's some drought. By the way, did we just see? Yeah, that's fine. So yeah, there's more drought risk over here, even though we have been building up the first level of defenses. So that might actually mean that we should really concentrate on building improved drought defenses over here as well. So we are continuing to try to adapt. The emissions over here were to a very large extent down to forestry, and that is because we are reducing our forests from turn to turn. So yeah, we really want to build up the protection against that, so I think that's fine. Only 2 cards over here, so it's not ideal, but it's what we'll have to deal with for now. Middle East, a very difficult place. A very difficult place because it is a very unstable place. So let's look at the news. Lower stability because people are displeased over here. And as long as it's very unstable, I think it does make sense to provide security assistance and just try to prevent civil war, because civil war really is the last thing that we do need right at this moment. So other than that though, I'm not sure there's that much that we can do over here. So the Middle East is of course mining oil dramatically, and that is something that we have to take into account. But I don't actually want to change that too much because, well, it's not my priority right now. Oil is much less worse than coal. Coal is really the biggest issue. So as long as they are producing oil and gas, I prefer them to do this rather than use coal. Which is a little bit cynical, but it is what we do have to deal with right now. You're also deforesting a little bit. Industry, energy usage, yeah, but still using very little coal, so I'm happy about that. What are you actually in industry? Do you use coal? You do use a little bit. It's not that dramatic, so I think we'd also over here be very well advised to protect ourselves, start to adapt a little, and that should hopefully be okay. Speaking of oil and gas, let's have a look at Russia. I think we will see that people are ill. That's not good. General strikes, that's also not good. That is bringing Russia to being unstable. There's also a chance of drought, so let's actually try to prevent wildfires over here. That's important because Russia has massive forests and we really don't want them to burn. So yeah, I think it might make sense to buy a second card slot over here. And we could think about the medical welfare program, simply so that people are a little bit less sick. What I also do want to do though is protect the land and specifically the forests in Russia though, because that is a very large forest. So yeah, let's try to sign them up to that, and that should be okay. Let's start with Southern Africa. It's slightly larger, 10% of the world population. Anti-drought effects are good. Water problems, healthcare crisis, and just generally things aren't exactly great. Right, I think it might make sense to build up more defenses down here. Oh, the region is very unstable though, so let's actually provide security assistance. Let's buy second card slot because that is going to be important. Could reduce unemployment, which I think would be okay. On the other hand, educational enrollment, human development by literacy would be very good indeed as well. So let's try to build up that and hope that Southern Africa is going to be okay. Northern Africa is volatile, so that's even worse than very unstable. And they do not like us. Angry mobs are surrendering GO offices across Northern Africa, demanding the Global Organization Act to end local poverty. Yeah, I can see why. They are also having troubles with storms. So let's try to address these storms first. And we're going to buy a second card over here. And we could do job sharing or educational enrollment. Let's do job sharing first because I think that's the most... Oh no, wait a minute. The most important of course is the security assistance. That should be okay. We don't have that much more money. I'm mindful about that. In Oceania, things are looking somewhat okay, so I'm happy about that. We could... I think Oceania is very well advanced in biotechnology, so we could think about getting to second generation biofuels over here and just fund that. On the other hand, we are Tobin taxing them, so let's build up storm defenses. They are fairly cheap and they do give us some goodwill, so I think that would be a good idea for now. South Asia, let's see what's going on over here. Dangerous forestation averted, that's good. Deforestation slowing down. Some moves to instability. That is not great, but all in all things seem to be fine down here. Let's build up wildfire defenses because again this is a very forestry area, and I think it's okay to have at least 2 card slots for every region so that we can tackle with the worst disasters. Japan really hates us, so we have to stop the Tobin tax over here, otherwise they will kick us out, and I would really appreciate if we were to not be kicked out basically. So yeah, let's go ahead and build up some defenses. I think storm defenses would be fairly good for Japan. And I'm gonna buy another slot over here. Japan is not the most important in terms of polluters. It only commits 2% of global emissions, but it is very important in terms of technology. So they are definitely a leader in robotics. Infotech, we are using America for infotech. I think we might want to try to use Europe for materials, and that would leave energy. So let's compare that briefly. So in Japan it's 215 years to get to the final version. In North America that would be a much more prudent target, but you know what, so let's use for now, let's use buy the wildfire defenses over here, and then we can later on switch to better technologies once they do like us a little bit more, hopefully. The contentment isn't great, so we'll have to think about what we can do in the midterm over here. What are other popular... Okay, so no popular options? Oh no, there are some. Fund law enforcement. Okay, interesting. Could do medical welfare. That's really not required, so yeah, I think it's fine to build up defenses in Japan. They are contributing quite a bit to our funds, so I think that's okay. Right, so that has been the crisis management mode for all regions. And we do have some money left though, so I think it might make sense to jump back to either North America or Europe, buy another slot and invest a little bit more. Let's do that in North America and also invest into energy research programs. So I think that's fine. We did say that was 175 years. Let's actually look at that in Europe, yeah. Okay, that's fine. So, yeah, we are investing in quite a bit of research over here. We are also doing some household regs, reducing the transport impacts. Probably gonna have to skip the Tobin tax very soon, but I think for now that's fine. We would have enough money to buy another card somewhere. Middle East, how many cards do we have here? Middle East is extremely important due to the oil reserves, and oil will be starting to run out at some point, and that will be a big problem because, well, the economy still relies on that, so... Ooh, and you actually don't have enough educational enrollment. So you know what? Let's buy another slot in over here, buy the educational enrollment. That nicely brings us to 0 funds. You can't carry over funds to the next turn, so that I think is important. Right, let's actually have a look over here which countries are contributing the most to our funds. North America, Europe, China are all basically on par. Latin America is contributing quite a bit actually. Russia isn't. Middle East is actually contributing quite a bit of money, and I think they are also still a very big emitter. They actually overtook Europe, so yeah, I think it's prudent that we did buy another slot over here. And educational enrollment is an important one because it will bring up the income over here, and as income grows higher, we will be able to play more cards and all of that. So I think that's a very good idea. And yeah, they are producing quite a bit of oil. And if we do have a look at the oil consumption and reserves in total, yeah, you can see that of the total oil and gas recoverable, the Middle East has by far the most. North America and Russia are important, but the Middle East is really the big player in that, so we can't afford to lose the Middle East. Yeah, it's just simply no way whatsoever. Let's also have a look at, not stability, do we see how much people do like us? I don't think we can see that on this card, but yeah. We can also have a brief look at the population change. So everything is somewhat stable, except for India. India is growing, North Africa is growing. The rest is okay-ish and somewhat stable. I don't quite believe that. Overall temperature. Yeah, things are starting to heat up over Russia, so I'm pretty happy we're playing the draw defenses over there. And yeah, what this means, the changed areas, I'm not particularly sure on. I think it means the degree of where there will be ice. So Yeah, that being said, let's briefly look at the overall outlook that we have. So in terms of emissions, I think we have for the first time started to see some of these things go down, but that is to a very large degree due to North America, and North America was really an outlier in this turn, so there was basically a lot of wildfires. Overall, I think the trend line is still ticking up, even though it's ticking up just a little bit. That would still be way worse than, you know, we are ending over here and we shouldn't go over 3 degrees of warming. So yeah, that's basically, we have to act very fast to get to that point. So overall emissions are projected to rise and rise and rise, and just by the way, have a look at how much they are rising. So in 2010, so basically today, we are having about 1.5 million tons of CO2 emissions aggregated in total. So that has been all the CO2 that has been put in the atmosphere since the Industrial Revolution, and we're just set to double that within a generation. So yeah, it's bad and getting worse even. So yeah, we'll have to see about that. And again, annual emissions are still rising. So we really have to take that into account quite quickly and address some of these things, specifically China. I mean, North America we can see coming down a little bit, Latin America stable, Europe coming down. It's good to see the industrialized countries coming down, but even India has been ticking up dramatically, nearly doubling their emissions. So that is one of the reasons why India is such a big problem in the game. Middle East also ticking up. Yeah. Right. So we have been adapting a little bit more. We are building up our defenses. We are hoping to reduce the emissions. We are trying to build up the foundations in some of the developing world countries to get to a better place and allow them to adapt more in the future. We are also starting to see some R&D developments, so that's very good. But it's going to take a while. Could think about buying smart grids over here, but we will get in 3 turns, and buying that is fairly expensive. So for now, I think we'll be fine over here. Right, so that being said, I do hope to see you guys next Fridays. Do leave a like if you want, of course, and do subscribe if you want to see next week's episode. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Bye bye.